Hey guys, Jason here. I just wanted to give a little update of everything that's going on. The podcast has been on a bit of a break just because, well, a lot's been happening. One, I said in a previous episode that I was going to be moving soon. That's still happening, but I'm not just moving, I'm actually buying a house, and a lot has been going into that. Most of my free time has been spent trying to get that all in order, and boy, it has not been easy. I've been looking around at a lot of different places. Finally found a place I liked. Had an inspector go through it. There were some issues. Made an offer. The people selling the house didn't like the offer. Um, they thought it was too little. You know, it. Anyway, I don't want to bore you with the details of that. Also, it's funny, since we last recorded, I had mentioned that I was going to be moving soon, but in the time period from when we last recorded to when this episode came out, Ashley has also moved, and we're working on getting us set up to be able to record, uh, in her new area because she doesn't really have that great of internet access right now. But that's all being figured out. Um, so yeah, and the holidays came and went, and that time of the year where seasonal depression affects people with it, and I know for a fact that I have that, and so I was just on top of the stress of trying to get the house and get everything in order in my apartment, and getting ready for the move. I just, with what little free time I had, I didn't feel motivated to edit and get the podcast out on time, and that's not fair to you guys, the listeners. So I'm trying to get everything back in order. The schedule's changed a little bit for the upcoming weeks. We're still going to be doing everything that we were working on. We're looking into recording more episodes of We have some episodes of Game of Thrones banked already, and the book comparisons, so those should be coming out soon. And we have gone through all the Disney episodes that we had recorded, the Disney movies, I should say, but we're going to be recording some more of those soon. And then after we finish up with Game of Thrones, we're going to get back into Once Upon a Time. So, you know, bear with us through this transitional period. Thank you for those of you who are sticking around to listen to it. And we hope to be back on schedule and back on track right away. And thanks. And, here's the episode.
Rumpelstiltskin always says that magic comes with a price. But for this price, you can get a nice piece of jewelry. Use code ONCEPOD for 10% off your first order at Unusual Magic Jewelry on Etsy. Click the link in the description. Hello, and welcome to the Once Again podcast. We are your hosts, Ashley and Jason. On today's episode, we will be discussing Game of Thrones Season 1, Episode 3, Lord Snow. This episode was written by David Benioff and D.B. Wise, adapted from George R. R. Martin's A Game of Thrones, and directed by Brian Kirk. It premiered May 1st, 2011, and had a viewership of 2.44 million. And a brief synopsis. Arriving at King's Landing after his long journey, Ned is shocked to learn of the crown's debt from his new advisors. At Castle Black, Jon Snow impresses Tyrion at his expertise over the greener recruits. Suspicious that the Lannisters had a hand in Bran's fall, Catelyn covertly follows her husband to King's Landing, where she is intercepted by Peter Baelish, aka Littlefinger, a shrewd, longtime ally and brothel owner. Cersei and Jaime ponder the implications of Bran's recovery. Arya studies swordsmanship, and on the road to Vaes Dothrak, Daenerys finds herself at odds with Viserys. And I just want to once again give a reminder before diving into the episode proper that our episodes for Game of Thrones are going to be split into two. The first part will focus on the HBO series, and the second will be a book comparison. And when the shows and the books go their separate way, Ashley and I will be giving our speculations and theories on where the books are going. After we recap the episode, Ashley and I will engage in a full spoilers discussion involving later episodes, later seasons, and as well as material from the books. We'll alert you when the full spoiler section comes up. So if you want to skip to the end of the podcast after that, we understand. And finally, if you are unaware, Game of Thrones has a much more violent and adult themed world than Once Upon a Time. We will be discussing subjects which some may find triggering and inappropriate for younger listeners. So let's dive into the episode. I first want to say that this episode is dedicated in memory of Margaret John, who plays Old Nan, who sadly passed away on February 2nd, 2011, after a brief illness. And a little trivia note, there are 3 scenes in this episode that were filmed after the episode was already cut. The episode was running short, and these scenes were filmed to pad for time. And I'll point out each scene after we discuss it.
Can't wait to see if these scenes are pointless, and I'm going to be like, why did we do this?
Well, you'll see. So let's start off with scene 1. The royal party arrives at King's Landing and are greeted by the royal steward, played by Robert Stern, in the courtyard of the Red Keep. He tells Eddard Stark that a meeting of the small council has already been convened and asks him to attend. Eddard orders Jory to get the rest of the party settled while he attends the meeting. The court herald suggests that Eddard might want to change into something more appropriate, but Eddard just stares at him until he turns to lead the way. I have 2 notes here. The first one I have written down. When the royal steward greets Eddard and says that Grand Maester Pycelle has called a meeting of the small council, the steward mispronounces Maester as Meister. The correct pronunciation is actually Maester. This was a reportedly common mistake on the set, which took the cast some time to get right. And the other note is, I love in this scene, in my summary, it says that he just stares at him. But in the actual episode, when he says, "Do you want to get changed?" he just takes off his riding gloves. Like Eddard Stark, Sean Bean just takes off the riding gloves that he was wearing. And it's different in the books. I'll give a small spoiler for the book, but Ned makes a much bigger deal about having to change.
Yeah, it's actually pretty much the opposite, where the steward is like, "Oh, you got to go," and he's like, "I need time to go get changed into something appropriate."
Yeah, I'm a lord and hand of the king. I have to. Well, let me borrow some clothes.
I've just gotten done from
quick.
a lot of riding. I can't just go to a meeting.
Yeah, and I actually like the show change better. I think it fits better with Ned's character, but that's just me. Yeah. In scene 2, on his way to the small council chamber, Eddard passes through the throne room. He finds Jaime Lannister sitting at the foot of the Iron Throne. Jaime tells him that it's good he's here, as they need some stern northern leadership. Eddard baits Jaime about the state of his armor and how there isn't a scratch on it, indicating that Jaime has chosen his opponents wisely. Irritated, Jaime tells Eddard about how his father and brother were killed in this very room, and 500 men stood and did nothing. It was silent apart from the screams and the Mad King's laughter. Later, when Jaime killed the Mad King, he recalled the screams of Eddard's father as he burned and said that it felt like justice. Eddard is incredulous that Jaime would suggest he betrayed his sworn oath for Eddard's father. Jaime sarcastically asks if Eddard would have approved if he had stabbed Aerys in the belly rather than the back, to which Ned reports that Jaime served Aerys well when serving was safe. It really is quite a horrible way that Ned's father and brother died in the throne room.
So I don't really like that scene at all, like the scene at all with Jaime. Like,
no,
there's something about it that just makes me like,
Is it that he's already there in King's Landing? Like Ned's the first one to arrive, but then Jaime's already there in the throne room.
Listen, the timing on pretty much this entire episode is weird because, it appears that Catelyn shows up after them too, which
Yeah, we'll discuss.
Yeah.
In scene 3, Eddard arrives at the small council chamber and greets its members. Varys, played by Colinth Hill, the Master of Whispers, Renly Baratheon, played by Gethin Anthony, the Master of Laws, and the youngest of King Robert's two brothers, Grand Maester Pycelle, played by Julian Glover, the king's personal maester and advisor, and Lord Peter Baelish, played by Aidan Gillen, who is also known as Littlefinger, and he serves as the realm's master of coin. Varys tells Eddard that they are praying for Prince Joffrey's full recovery, but Eddard suggests that he could have prayed for the butcher's son instead. Eddard greets Renly warmly, as he hasn't seen him in many years. Renly comments that Ned looks exhausted from traveling and claims that he tried to get the rest of the council to postpone the meeting.
At least Renly is like, I'm sorry that you've been traveling and need to immediately be in this stupid meeting.
Yeah. And another small difference from the book to show, Renly in the books looks exactly like a young Robert. And that's something that really strikes Ned. You know, I guess you could say that Renly and Robert in the show do look kind of similar because they have black hair. But they, you know, I wouldn't really buy Renly as a younger version of Robert in this.
No.
But moving right along, Ned also greets Pycelle, noting that the last time they met, Pycelle was serving a different king. Pycelle gives Eddard the symbol of his office, a badge showing a hand. Eddard greets Littlefinger more formally, noting that he was a friend of his wife's when they were young, and Littlefinger notes that he has a token of esteem from Eddard's late brother, who cut him, though not grievously, during a duel for Catelyn's honor. The meeting is convened to Eddard's surprise. It is customary for the king to attend such meetings. Renly tells Eddard that Robert never takes part in the meetings, and Varys more politely says that Robert has many burdens but allows his small council to take care of the small matters of the realm. Littlefinger notes that they are the lords of small matters. Renly passes a proclamation from Robert to Eddard, reporting that the king has ordered the realm to stage a tournament in honor of Lord Stark's appointment. Littlefinger asks how much this will cost them. Eddard, slightly astounded, reads the letter. 40,000 gold dragons for the champion, 20,000 to the runner-up, and 20,000 to the winning archer. Pycelle asks if the realm can afford it, and Littlefinger replies yes. As the realm already owes Tywin Lannister 3 million gold dragons, 80,000 isn't much to add. Eddard, getting angry, asks Littlefinger to confirm that the realm is 3 million in debt. Littlefinger replies that it is 6 million in debt, including other creditors. Renly says that Robert has no time for working out where the money comes from, counting coppers, he calls it. He just likes spending it. Eddard refuses to believe that Jon Arryn let Robert beggar the realm, and Pycelle agrees that Lord Arryn often offered wise and prudent counsel. Unfortunately, Robert often ignored it. Eddard angrily tells the council that there will be no tournament, then pauses and apologizes for his tone, as he is still weary from the road. Varys tells him that they serve at his pleasure. I like this scene. I think it's a good, you get all these characters. Boom.
Yeah, and you get, you know, how they kind of work together, and you get their relationships with Ned.
And Littlefinger steals almost every scene he's in for me. I don't know about for you, but
yeah,
he's just great. So let's move to scene 4. Queen Cersei is checking Prince Joffrey's wounds. She tells him that they can say what they like about the incident, that Joffrey fought off a dire wolf bravely. She even suggests spreading the story that he killed the beast and only spared Arya because of the love his father bore for hers. Cersei says that the truth is malleable for a king, that once Aerys sat on the Iron Throne, and Robert was a rebel and a traitor. When Joffrey sits on the Iron Throne, the truth will be what he makes it. It's just such great advice to give to this little psychopath.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could do whatever.
Yes, tell your psychopath son that his truth is the only truth, basically.
Yeah. Do whatever you want, and then just tell everyone that it's the right thing to do. Joffrey asks if he has to marry Sansa, and Cersei confirms that it is so. But he only has to sleep with her when he wants. She suggests doing something nice for Sansa and try to repair their rift, but Joffrey is reluctant. Instead, he argues that they are allowing the Northerners too much power and they consider themselves the equals of the Lannisters and the Baratheons. Cersei asks him how he would handle them, and he suggests doubling their taxes and contributing 10,000 men to a standing royal army. Joffrey thinks that each lord controlling his own force is primitive. If the Northerners were to rebel over this matter, Joffrey would seize Winterfell and install someone loyal, perhaps his uncle Kevin as Warden of the North. When Cersei asks how the Northerners and his royal army would respond to this order, Joffrey replies that they would have no choice but to obey. Cersei tells her son his plan is foolish, the North is too big and too wild to be invaded and occupied. Any occupying army would be annihilated when winter comes. A good king knows when to save his strength and destroy his enemies. Joffrey notes this and then asks his mother if the Starks are their enemies. Cersei replies, anyone who isn't us is an enemy.
It's just one of the scenes that they just added in later because I believe that.
No.
Surprising.
Yeah.
Because this also isn't in the books at all. Like,
yeah, no, it's not.
It's completely divorced from the books.
Yeah.
Though I do think it shows that like Joffrey really doesn't want anything to do with Sansa. Which is interesting because in the books he's a little bit more pliable about dealing with Sansa. So
agreed. I also I agree with both of them in this scene. It's going to sound weird to say, but I actually think Joffrey's idea about having a standing royal army isn't a bad idea as far as like progress goes for the realm.
Yeah.
Like just imagine if the United States, instead of having a United States military, each state had a different military. Like it would be kind of chaotic. Oh, we're going to send the Texans now, and then later we'll send, the Californians or whoever you want to say. But no, it's a better idea to have a united army. But Cersei's right about everything about the North, that it's too big, you can't take control of it, blah, blah, blah.
Like, you might be able to get them to give the men for such an army, but you would never be able to just invade it and take over in the manner that he's suggesting.
Right. Let's move on to scene 5, because each of these episodes is 5 hours long of this podcast.
So like an hour.
Yeah. No, but in scene 5, Arya and Sansa have a meal with Septa Mordain, who must just be thrilled that there are no more dire wolves around. I didn't think about
now she's dealing with 2 kids that are upset about their dire wolves. Which is worse, really.
I would take angsty preteens over having giant wolves that could attack me at any moment. Sorry, that's just me personally. But Arya and Sansa are having a meal with Septa Mordain, but Arya is angrily stabbing the table with her knife. She tells them that she is practicing for Joffrey, that he is a liar and a coward, and that Micah would still be alive if Sansa had told the truth. Not that last part, but everything else Arya is right about. Mordain tells Arya to leave the room. Eddard arrives and talks to Sansa, giving her a gift of a doll. Sullen, she replies that she hasn't played with dolls since she was 8. Eddard looks helplessly at Mordain, noting that war was easier than daughters.
As a daughter, I can confirm.
Oh, yeah.
Daughters are not easy.
Yeah. Not
to
to
steal their hearts and then cause chaos.
My worst fear is having a daughter someday, because I know from the moment that little baby is born, she will have me wrapped around her finger, and my daughter will never do anything wrong in my eyes. And I'll be no, that person deserved to be murdered. It doesn't matter what type of person my daughter is. Like a son I'll be totally fine with. Like a son will be like, Daddy, I'm hungry. I'll be like, well, go make something then. But like a daughter of like she'll just have me wrapped around her finger from the moment she's born. It's my worst fear. And I, most of my fears come true. So I know someday I'll probably have a daughter. Let's move on.
You got to be dating to get there.
No, shush. In scene 6, In her room, Arya unsheaths her sword. Her father arrives and catches her with it. He notes that it is Mycon's work. She tells him its name and says that she doesn't want to be a lady. Arya blames herself for Micah's death and for asking him to practice with her. Ned reassures her that what happened wasn't her fault. Arya rages at her unhappiness and those she holds responsible, listing primarily the Queen, Joffrey, and Sansa. Eddard explains that Sansa could not betray her future husband for all the years of trouble that would cause. Arya is surprised, asking how her father could let her marry someone like that. Eddard, unable to find a good answer, tells her that winter is coming and they must rely on one another in this dangerous place. And Arya admits that she doesn't truly hate her sister over what happened. Eddard tells Arya that she can keep Needle, but she needs to find someone to train her on how to use it. This is kind of like a counter scene to the Joffrey Cersei scene before. Like this shows good parenting, and I like Eddard's smooth move there of like, oh man, I don't have a good answer for this. Let me change the subject. But moving on to scene 7, a crow flies into Bran's room in Winterfell. Old Nan, played by Margaret John, a senior servant, is trying to cheer Bran up and offers to tell him stories about Sir Duncan the Tall. Bran tells her he prefers the scary stories. Old Nan starts to tell him about the long night when the land froze under a winter that lasted for years on end, and out of the darkness the White Walkers came riding their dead horses and hunting with packs of giant spiders. Robb enters and dismisses Old Nan and her stories. He tells Bran how he fell, but Bran still can't remember. Robb is puzzled as he's seen Bran climb 1,000 times in all weather and never fall. Bran asks if it is true that he will never walk again, and Robb nods in agreement. Bran says that he would rather be dead. A shocked Robb angrily chastises his little brother for expressing such thoughts, but Bran reiterates that he would rather be dead. Boy. Yeah.
Yeah. Oof.
In scene 8, Sir Roderick Cassel and Catelyn Stark arrive at King's Landing via a small side gate. Sir Roderick thinks that they are less likely to be noticed this way, but Catelyn thinks the precaution is unnecessary. It's been 9 years since she last visited the capital, and no one knew who she was back then. However, they're almost immediately approached by 2 members of the City Watch. They have been expected and are to go with them. I think that's kind of a humorous scene. Like she's like, "Oh, no one's gonna know me," and then
no one knows me. I'm just a Tully. No one's ever seen me.
Yeah, Lady Stark, come with us. Oh, like, yeah.
Surprise Pikachu face, guys.
Yeah. In scene 9, Roderick and Catelyn are taken to, of all places, a brothel in the city. They are greeted by Littlefinger. Catelyn is furious at being taken to such a place. Littlefinger apologizes for any perceived disrespect, but they will not be seen here. Catelyn wants to know how he knew she was coming, and Varys enters the room. He tells her that his little birds are everywhere, even in the north, and that they already told him about the dagger and the attempt on her life. Catelyn shows them the dagger, and Varys reluctantly says that he has no idea where it comes from. Littlefinger is amused to know something that Varys does not, and confirms that the dagger belongs to him. He lost it in a wager during a tournament which was held on Prince Joffrey's last name day. He had bet on Sir Jaime Lannister, as any sane man would, but Sir Loras Tyrell, the Knight of the Flowers, managed to unseat Jaime, and Littlefinger lost the bet. The person who won it was Tyrion Lannister, the imp. I love this scene, just knowing what we know about Littlefinger. I love how he waits for Varys to say he has no idea where the blade came from, and then he's like, "Oh, I know." As I said, I'm a sucker for Littlefinger.
Littlefinger's such a good character.
Yeah, especially in the first couple seasons. In scene 10, at Castle Black, Tyrion and Lord Commander Jeor Mormont, played by James Cosmo, are looking over the training yard. Sir Alistair Thorne, played by Owen Teale, is putting the new recruits through their paces, using Jon Snow's superior castle training to humiliate them. However, he has no praise for Jon, addressing him by the mocking title of Lord Snow, and coldly telling Jon that he is the least useless of all the recruits, which is a line I love to use on people. I sometimes describe some of my coworkers as the least useless person here. Tyrion notes that Thorne is a charming man, quote unquote, but Mormont says that he doesn't need him to be charming. He needs someone who can turn these boys into men of the Night's Watch. He admits that it is going slowly. He asks Tyrion to deliver a message he's just received to Jon Snow. It's about Bran. Tyrion asks if it's good news or bad, and Mormont responds, both.
I find it interesting that he has Tyrion do the delivering.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because, like, you would think he'd just be like, okay, I'm just going to hand this off to Jon myself. Like,
excuse me? The Lord Commander of the Night's Watch descending down from his tower, overlooking to mingle.
Excuse you, asking Tyrion to do it, though? Also kind of an odd choice.
I mean, yes, but he is the most important person there. He is the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, and he was a Lord of Bear Island beforehand. So, you know, he understands that. Does the Lord of Bear Island outrank a Lannister? No. But does the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch outrank, one Lannister that has like no title or anything yet? Yes. Let's move on to scene 11. In the Red Keep, Eddard is given a similar message by Pycelle. Littlefinger arrives and asks if it is good news. He suggests that Eddard could share it with his wife. Eddard points out that his wife is in Winterfell, and Littlefinger responds, is she? This goes right into yeah. This goes right into scene 12, and Littlefinger takes Eddard to the brothel. Believing he is being mocked, Eddard grabs Littlefinger by the neck and throws him up against the wall, saying, he's a funny man, a very funny man. Ned continues to choke Peter, while easily pinning him against the wall using only his left hand wrapped around his throat, not even his dominant right hand, but Peter isn't strong enough to resist him. Catelyn appears on the balcony overhead and tells Ned to calm himself. Incredulously, Eddard goes in to meet her. Littlefinger, composing himself, mutters that the Starks have quick tempers but slow minds. You are correct, Littlefinger.
Very correct.
In scene 13, at Castle Black, Jon is confronted by several of the other recruits. Rast, Pip, played by Joseph Alton, and Grin, played by Mark Stanley. They are angry with Jon for beating them in the training yard and breaking Grin's nose. When Jon says it's an improvement, they grab him and prepare to beat him up, but they are interrupted by Tyrion's arrival. Tyrion scares them off by noting that they have interesting faces, which would look good decorating spikes on King's Landing's walls. Which, just as a quick aside, I always get spikes and pikes confused because like they're the same thing. Like it's like you use a pike to mount a head, but I guess you also use a spike to mount a head. Whatever. Jon says that the other boys resent him for being better than him, but Tyrion says they resent him because he was brought up in a castle and trained by a proper, formidable master at arms. They were not so lucky. Pip was sent to the wall for stealing a wheel of cheese to feed his starving sister, and Grin was left outside a farmhouse at the age of 3. Tyrion gives Jon the letter about Bran, and that's why Tyrion was given the letter, so that he could interrupt this scene of Jon getting beaten up.
Yeah, and also so that Tyrion can be like, look, I get your thoughts, but like,
yeah,
you also have better training than any of these people. These people have no training.
Mm-hmm. And this gives a small glimpse of what book Tyrion and book Jon are like. Jon is a very angsty emo kid, and who just assumes people hate him for whatever reasons. That's
because he's used to getting a lot of hatred onto him from people for no reason.
From Catelyn.
Yeah.
That's really the only, and
I imagine though that Catelyn had enough
swagger.
Like
Yeah. She could order
power within Winterfell that her not liking him probably made other people not give him the kind of attention that his brothers and sisters were getting.
Yeah, we've talked about how Sansa also looks down on him in the books, and how well, we haven't discussed this, but I guess, Catelyn could order people. Like, I would assume Septa Mordain wouldn't like Jon because he's a bastard and everything. But, Catelyn could order people to be mean to him or to not treat him the same as the other siblings.
No, that's what I'm saying. So I think it's her power alone could easily make Jon's life miserable. And I'm assuming there's a lot of people that did not treat him well in Winterfell. Obviously, Theon doesn't really like him either.
Right. But and I said this also gives an example of book Tyrion because he learned everybody's stories, remembered it, and then used that knowledge. Like he's very, very intelligent. In scene 14 at the brothel, Littlefinger points out that any accusation that Tyrion tried to kill Bran would be regarded as treason. The evidence that they have is sketchy and easily denied. Tyrion will most likely claim that the dagger was stolen from him, and the assassin, the only one who could say otherwise, is dead. Catelyn urges Ned to trust Littlefinger, saying that he is like a little brother to her, which I'm sure is something he loved to hear. And Littlefinger agrees that he will, both of them, I guess, Ned and Littlefinger, and Littlefinger agrees that he will help keep Eddard safe in the capital for Catelyn. When Catelyn says that he is a true friend, Littlefinger asks her not to spread that around. He has a reputation to maintain. In scene 15, Cersei meets with Jaime in her chambers and berates him for throwing Bran from the window. She could have intimidated Bran into silence. He tells her to calm down. Cersei also reports that Bran has no memory of what happened, which satisfies Jaime. If somehow he remembers and Robert goes to war with him, Jaime will fight it gladly. Cersei slaps him, but Jaime stops her and tells her that he will kill everyone until the two of them are the only two people left in the world, if necessary. Boy.
I mean, this is kind of where we see, and Jaime is very devoted to this relationship.
Right. Yeah. We'll discuss it in the books. Okay. Scene 16. Catelyn takes her leave of Eddard, regretting that she cannot stay and see the girls, but it is safer this way. Catelyn says that she knows the Lannisters committed this crime. Eddard agrees and says that he will find overwhelming proof and bring it to Robert. Yeah, I'm sure you will. And hopes that he is still the man that Eddard once knew. Eddard tells Catelyn that Littlefinger still loves her, but she just says, "Does he?" and kisses Eddard goodbye. She and Sir Roderick leave the city. In scene 17, King Robert is in his chambers, drinking and reminiscing about the battles with Sir Barristan Selmy, played by Ian McGillian, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. Barristan recalls his first kill was a Tyroshi soldier whose name he never knew. He killed him with a lance to the heart. Robert recalls his first kill was a soldier serving in House Tarley at the Battle of Summerhall. The soldier thought he could end the war with a single swing of his sword, but Robert killed him instead. Robert recalls how the man begged for mercy before Robert dealt the death blow and gets melancholy, thinking that the boy could have stayed in the back of the ranks of the enemy army, served the battle, and would now be unhappily married with ingrates for children of his own. Robert demands wine from his squire, Lancel Lannister, played by Eugene Simmons, a cousin of Jaime and Cersei's. Lancel is only able to pour a little, as the jug has run out. Robert angrily sends him for more and orders Jaime, standing guard outside of his chamber, to come in. He then asks him about his first kill, and Jaime replies that it was one of the Kingswood Brotherhood, an outlaw band. He was only a 16-year-old squire and cut the other man's head off, meaning he had no last words. Barristan was there that day. Jaime remembers Barristan killing Simon Toyne with a counter move, the best Jaime had ever seen. Barristan notes that Toyne was a good fighter, but lacked stamina. Robert asks Jaime what the Mad King said when he died, if he called Jaime a traitor or begged for mercy. Jaime replies the only words he said he had been saying all day: burn them all. Having silenced Robert, he takes his leave. And I have two notes here. The first saying being Robert says that he killed a Tarly at the Battle of Summerhall. According to the books, the Tarleys did not participate in this battle. Instead, they fought against Robert and defeated him in the Battle of Ashford. And my second note is that this was the first scene shot to pad for time.
Interesting.
Yeah. One of the ways to tell, at least in this episode and the next episode, is that all the scenes shot to fill in time are interior scenes. Yeah.
I mean, I think this scene has a good info, but I also don't think it's necessary.
Yeah. I like it because it gives their backstories a little bit. You see these old war horses, even though they kind of all hate each other, like agreeing about something.
Yeah, I suppose you're right that it gives the backstory that we don't get because, like, we'd get it in the books just from it being told in the books to us.
Right. So
like, we hear quite often in the books, even before we meet Barristan, that, like, he's one of the greatest knights of all time. Like,
yeah. But let's move on to scene 18. Drogo's Khalasar is passing through a vast forest of bamboo. Daenerys asks Sir Jorah if the Dothraki buy their slaves, but Jorah says no. The Dothraki do not believe in money. Instead, they take slaves as tribute from cities in lieu of sacking them. However, Jorah points out that the Dothraki sometimes feel insulted by the quality of the slaves and will sack the city anyway. Sometimes they take the slaves and other tribute and then sack the city regardless if they haven't had a good fight in months.
Sometimes they just need a good fight, okay?
Yeah. I feel like in the books too, we get like things about like how one Dothraki tribe will leave a city after sacking it, and then another one shows up. Like it's just like, oh my god.
Yep.
Yeah.
Imagine living that way.
Oh, I couldn't. No.
I would just join the Dothraki, I feel like.
A lot of the free cities would be kind of cool to live in, but yeah, I could not live like in a more eastern Essos. But we'll discuss those cities as they come up. Daenerys sees a Dothraki hitting a slave and orders the whole Khalasar to halt until she says otherwise. Jorah notes that she is talking like a queen, but she says not like a queen, but like a Khaleesi. She goes for a walk in the forest, but is chased down by her brother. Viserys is furious at being ordered to halt with the rest of the horde and tells Daenerys that he does not take orders from savages or their sluts. Before he can say any more, a whip wraps itself around his throat and he is dragged to the ground by Daenerys' Dothraki bodyguard, Rakaro, who is played by Ellis Gable, who followed them with Eerie, one of Daenerys' handmaids. Translating for Rakaro, Eerie suggests killing Viserys, but Daenerys orders him spared. Rakaro is disappointed at not being allowed to take an ear to teach Viserys respect. Viserys orders Sir Jorah to kill the Dothraki dogs. After considering for a moment, Sir Jorah ignores him and escorts Daenerys back to the Khalasar. Amused, Rakaro makes Viserys walk back. Being forced to walk is the ultimate insult from a Dothraki.
Here we kind of already see that Jorah's kind of making his choice on which Targaryen he thinks is the right one to be backing here. Spoiler, it's not Viserys.
Yeah. Well, someday he'll get crowned, and I'm sure things will work out for him when that happens. In scene 19 at Castle Black, Jon ascends to the top of the wall via a wheel and pulley lift. He joins his uncle Benjen, who tells him he wanted to be there the first time Jon saw the view from the top of the wall. Benjen says he is leaving. They have heard further strange reports from beyond the wall, and he is going to investigate. Jon asks to go with him, but Benjen says no. Jon is not yet ready, and Benjen is annoyed to find that Jon just expects that he can go due to his relationship with Benjen. Here on the wall, a man only gets what he earns when he earns it. Benjen says that they will talk more upon his return. Man, Jon's going to get so many talks. Like, Rob's going to talk to him more, Ned's going to talk to him more, and now Benjen's going to talk to him more. He's
I
going to
think
be
what kills
chatted
me
up.
here, right, is
Yeah.
that Benjen's like, I'm annoyed, like, that you expect to just be given things like, okay, but no one's really given him any reason to think otherwise.
Well,
Like, y'all just let him come up here. Like, Benjen could have been, like, very more explicit about, like, I am not going to be able to treat you as my nephew at any point.
for a long time, I thought that Benjen, I'm going to do a little spoiler here from the books, I guess, but my own personal ideas. For a long time, I thought Benjen was John's father because he like kind of runs away from John at every chance that he can. And I thought that's why like John is like the living embodiment of the reminder of like what type of person Benjen was when he was younger.
Yeah.
I now feel differently, but it was scenes like this because this is pretty similar to what happens in the book. I now feel differently, but this was one of the reasons why I felt that way for a long time.
Yeah, they definitely have an odd
relationship
with one another.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, John had a misunderstanding. John's almost like Sansa. Like Sansa thinks the world, she's going to be this beautiful princess and everything, and John thinks that he's going to join the wall or join the Night's Watch and be this, great man serving there and everything. They both, kind of don't have a realistic view of this world.
I also don't think the adults around them have at any point given them any reason to think otherwise. You know what I mean? Like Benjen didn't really sit down and be like, hey, this is how it's going to be.
Well, he did try to tell John to have some bastards of his own before.
He did, but I don't think that was enough in what he was trying to say, because I think if he had worded it differently and been like, no, like, you don't understand, like, you're not going to be my nephew when you're there. Like, yeah, we'll be family, but like, that bond no longer matters nearly as much as the bond of my brothers in the Night's Watch.
And serving the realm and blah, 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 doing my duty. Yeah. That's something that John really doesn't learn. I mean, he comes to understand it a little bit, but it's not something that he really learns until later, I think. He has a conversation with Maester Aemon at a certain point that he comes to understand what it really means. But we move on to scene 20, and Tyrion has made the acquaintance of Yoren, played by Francis McGee, a recruiter for the Night's Watch. Yoren has a rough sense of humor, which Tyrion enjoys. They swap stories about the strangest things that they've eaten, with Yoren saying bear's testicles and Tyrion proposing Dornish girls to Yoren's amusement. It's a good line.
It really is.
Yeah. Yoren is heading out again, this time bound south. He'll take the leavings of various lords' dungeons, but half or more of his recruits will come from King's Landing. Benjen Stark enters the room and notes their laughter. He asks if Tyrion thinks the Night's Watch is a joke, a story he can spread around down south while drinking fine wines and enjoying his brothels. He points out that half the boys Tyrion has seen training will die north of the wall, some from a wildling's axe or from the cold, and that they will be in pain and fear. Tyrion, slightly irritated by Benjen's words, tells him he has great respect for the Night's Watch and for Benjen as First Ranger. Benjen, amused, notes that the silence before the "but" in such a sentence is telling. Tyrion goes on to say that he does not believe in White Walkers or giants or any of the other mythological terrors lurking beyond the wall, and that the only difference between the people of the Seven Kingdoms and the wildlings is what side their respective ancestors happened to be on when the wall went up. Benjen agrees, saying that the wildlings are men just like them, just harder and tougher. It's not the wildlings that keep him awake at night, but other things. He tells Tyrion that he has never been north of the wall, so he can't tell Benjen what is out there. He leaves, and Tyrion ponders if Benjen is starting to like him. Tyrion offers to share the road with Yoren. As no one refuses a Lannister, that means they'll be sleeping in the finest inns and castles rather than Yoren's normal ditches and hedges. My only note here is that this was the second scene shot to pad for time, which I find
this one makes sense. There's similar stuff in the book to this
yeah,
scene.
but it is an introduction to the character of Yoren, and it's a good scene with Benjen Stark. Like the thing that surprised me is how well written these padded time scenes are.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
they
like,
are very well written. Like you said, it's a good introduction to Yoren, who we see a little bit going forward. So like, it makes sense to have him pretty involved, and then again we get more of Tyrion, and then we get that Benjen's really serious about the wall, and
right.
you know, he definitely has seen some things, even if Tyrion doesn't believe him, and even if we as the audience don't necessarily believe him.
I also love Benjen's line of saying, like, my father told me that everything a person says before the word but doesn't count. Like, I use that line, and I don't say my father told me, but like, it goes to show Benjen's upbringing as well. Like, he is from a noble family and everything like that, and he's smart. He's not, a dumb Stark like some of like his brother is.
He is a smart Stark.
Yeah.
And what have we done with him but put him on the wall?
Yeah. Which I want to know why. Like, because we'll discuss it in the full spoiler section. Remind me to bring up why Benjen's at the wall again in full spoilers. We go to scene 21, and Irri is teaching Daenerys how to speak Dothraki. Puzzled, Irri notes that Daenerys' body is changing. She asks Daenerys if she has bled recently, and Daenerys is unable to reply. Irri informs Daenerys that she is pregnant, noting it is a blessing from the great stallion. My only note from this scene is the Dothraki word Irri is heard teaching Daenerys is Othjagaha, and it is the Dothraki word for pride. It is derived from Jakar, the long braid worn by Dothraki warriors, which they take great pride in, as they only cut their braids when defeated.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's an interesting little tidbit.
Moving on to scene 22, Ser Jorah Mormont and Ricardo are comparing their respective weapons and ways of fighting. Jorah notes that the Dothraki Akar is a superior weapon to use from horseback with its curved blade. However, the Akar is unable to penetrate heavy armor. In that case, the Westerosi broadsword is superior. Ricardo points out that the Dothraki do not wear armor, as it makes a man slow. His father taught him that speed defeats size. Jorah agrees, but the armor can also keep a man alive. He asks Ricardo about his father, a man he has heard was a great warrior. Ricardo proudly says that he was blood rider to call Barbo, Drogo's father. He asks about Jorah's father in return, and if he was a great warrior. Jorah replies that he still is a great man of great honor, and Jorah betrayed him. Irri enters the tent and tells them that they need to have something more interesting for dinner. She commands Ricardo to go and kill some rabbit or duck. Ricardo is incredulous as there are no such animals nearby. Irri suggests killing a dog, but Jorah suggests that it is unlikely Daenerys will like that. Irri tells them that Daenerys is pregnant. Jorah thoughtfully says that they can procure a goat from the herds. After Irri leaves, Jorah says he must ride to the nearby free city of Qohar. Ricardo points out that the Khalasar is moving eastward towards Vaes Dothrak, but Jorah promises to catch up as the Horde's trail is easy to find. And this is the third and final scene that was shot to pad for time, which this is another scene that kind of seems like it had a point to it.
I mean, we're learning more about the different fighting styles, but we're also seeing that Jorah is going to go.
As soon as he finds
the info,
out,
immediately after he gets the info, he's like, right. I gotta go.
Right. That's what I mean. It was a crucial scene that way. The whole talking about their fathers, I could see that being padding, but having to leave as soon as he gets information about Daenerys, it's like, that's important. But
because now we know that his loyalties lie really only in getting his titles back and stuff.
Right.
His loyalty is not necessarily to Daenerys, to Viserys, to anybody. He's loyal to himself.
I forget if I don't think I mentioned this in the last episode, but he's spying on them for Robert in promise of a full pardon. Like he's going to get a pardon for his crimes in Westeros.
Yeah.
So we move on to scene 23. Jon Snow is practicing in the courtyard at Castle Black again, but this time, instead of humiliating the other boys, he shows them their mistakes and what they are doing wrong. He quickly wins over Pip and Grin with this advice. Tyrion, watching from nearby, approves. This goes to scene 24. I actually do like that scene a lot.
Yeah.
But not much to talk about. We go to scene 24. Tyrion meets with Lord Commander Mormont, Jorah's father, and Maester Aemon, played by Peter Vaughan. They ask Tyrion how many winters he has seen. Tyrion says 9, and that the winter of his birth was 3 years long. Aemon says the summer that is now ending has lasted for 9 years, which means a long and bitter winter to follow. Reports from the Citadel confirm that the days are growing shorter and that the seasons are changing. Winter is coming, as the Starks say, and Aemon believes this winter will bring dark things with it. Mormont reports that they are capturing wildlings every month, fleeing south in greater numbers. Many of them are saying that they have seen the White Walkers. Tyrion replies that the fishermen of Lannisport say that they have seen mermaids, but Mormont and Aemon go on, remarking that one of their rangers swore that he saw the walkers kill his companions and that he kept swearing it right up to the moment Ned Stark chopped off his head. The Night's Watch is the only thing that stands between the Seven Kingdoms and what lies beyond, and it has become an army of undisciplined boys and tired old men. Their numbers have dropped below 1,000, meaning they can no longer man the other castles on the wall or properly patrol the wilderness. They ask him to use his influence at court to send more recruits. For all his bluster and brave talk, Tyrion is unsettled by the desperation of the two men.
Like, what do you want? You have this group of people that are trying to protect the realm, and like they are not getting good recruits anymore. And
yeah, and he can even see, like, even though he doesn't believe in the White Walkers and everything, he can see that they're unsettled by what's going on. And even if you don't believe in it, the number of wildlings like increasing, fleeing south, that's a threat as well. Like it's
what's really unsettling is the fact that there hasn't been a winter in so long, and like a serious winter, that all these people have forgotten. Like this is one of those, like, when you forget history, history repeats itself kind of moments. Like they have forgotten that these things actually do exist. So
yeah,
they're stories now instead of being realistic threats that, like, we have this wall for a reason.
Well, exactly. And I mean, like, I'm going to be fair. I'm going to try to be fair to the people of this world. It was 8,000 years ago. Like, how many stories do we really have from 8,000 years ago today? And
true,
even at that, granted, our world moves a whole lot faster than their world does, as far as development and technology and civilization. But yeah, I don't know. Gilgamesh, I think, is like the only story from that long ago that we still have today. But let's move on to scene 25. In the Dothraki camp, Daenerys and Drogo are lying together naked. She tells him in Dothraki that it'll be a boy. He asks her how she can be sure, and she just says that she knows.
You know, I will say a lot of these scenes are very, very short and pointless. Like, they're very snappy.
Yeah, you're right. In scene 26, fulfilling his promise, Tyrion stands atop the wall and urinates off the edge. He says farewell to Jon, and he promises to carry his good wishes to Bran when he stops at Winterfell on his way back south. Jon is upset that Bran will never walk again, but Tyrion points out that if you have to be a cripple, it's good to at least be a rich cripple.
He's right.
Yeah. You know, if you have to be anything, it's good to be a rich anything. In scene 27, in the final scene for this episode, in the Red Keep, Arya is summoned to a meeting with her quote unquote dancing master, a man named Syrio Farrell, portrayed by Mitalos Yoromolo. Syrio is the former First Sword of Braavos, a master swordsman contracted by her father to teach her how to use her sword. Syrio calls her a boy, to Arya's irritation. When she responds that she is a girl, he tells her it doesn't matter if she's a boy or a girl. She must be a sword. He approves of her small size, which makes her a difficult target in combat. He says that he will teach her the way of sword fighting in Bravos, the water dance, rather than the hacking and slashing of the knights of Westeros. Eddard comes in and watches them practice. Initially, he is pleased to see Arya's training hard, but then he realizes he is training her for war. And in his mind, the clunk of the wood is replaced by the clash of steel and the screams of the dying. And that is the end of the episode.
Do we ever find, I don't remember, do we ever find out why Syrio is no longer the first sword of Bravos and why he is here?
There's a lot. I'm going to say full spoiler section for our listeners. So if you don't want full spoilers, have a good day. And we'll start discussing that.
Okay.
There's a fan theory that Syrio is Jack and Hagar / the Faceless Man, and he's been training Arya this whole time. I don't really subscribe to that, but I think the first sword of Bravos is replaced when what is it? The governor of I forget what the title is, but whenever the Prince of Bravos, it's an elected official. I forget what they call them, but whenever they die, the new one that's elected picks a new first sword of Bravos. I could be mistaken about that, but I think that's how that works.
Okay.
But yeah, I just wanted to also throw out the Faceless Man theory.
Because, it's very interesting that he's here.
Right. Agreed. Well, and it's interesting too, because geographically, Bravos is actually, I think, parallel to Winterfell, geographically speaking, like the same longitude and latitude or whatever. I guess it's latitude. But because very similar to how, in the real world, Pennsylvania, the state I live in, is parallel to Italy. But Pennsylvania is much colder than Italy because of the way that the wind currents on the earth go. And Bravos is it does get cold there, but it doesn't get nearly as cold as Winterfell. But I don't know why I was talking about that. It's interesting. You just made me think of Bravos, and a lot of Bravos facts were popping into my head. But I'm going to dive into my notes on the full spoiler section.
Okay.
This is the first episode in which no deaths occur. It is also the only episode in this season with no deaths, and this also makes it the first episode without deaths before the start of the War of the Five Kings.
To be fair, all these scenes were tiny for the most part, so there's no time for people to die.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Well, I guess we didn't see what happened to that goat that Daenerys is going to end up eating.
That poor goat.
That could have counted. My second note here is it is never revealed in the show who sent the assassin to kill Bran and who is the real owner of the dagger. In the novel A Clash of Kings, Catelyn is told to whom Littlefinger lost the dagger. In the novel A Storm of Swords, two characters figure it out based on circumstantial evidence who sent the assassin. I believe, if I remember correctly, those two characters are Jaime and Cersei, and they figure it was Joffrey. Like Joffrey hired the Cat's Paw to go and kill Bran because he overheard Robert talking about how they should just kill him and get it over with. So he thought it would impress Robert if he had him killed, but whatever. My next note is since Jaime and Cersei are not POV characters in the first novel, their conversation in this episode about Bran does not occur on screen in the novels. It is mentioned in a flashback in A Storm of Swords, where Jaime is a POV character. Now, I mentioned previous. Is there anything you want to bring up, or should I dive in?
No, I did. I did say that I did have my note about why Benjen is on the wall. So
go ahead then, because I wanted to like that. That's my question, because Ned sends Benjen to the wall in the books, if I remember correctly.
I think that's correct. Yeah.
And granted, Jon's born and Robb is born, but they're babies. Like Benjen is the heir apparent to Winterfell and the North and everything. Should something happen to Robb, and if something happened to Jon, like even if you want to say, oh, Jon's a bastard, he can't inherit. The king is the Robert's Ned's best friend. He could have
Yeah.
Jon legitimized at any time. So if Catelyn gave him no other kids besides Robb, and Robb died, then there's Jon, who he could have legitimized, blah, blah, blah. But Benjen's third in line, like for Winterfell. So it just kind of surprised, like, not, I don't think Benjen chose to go to the Wall. I think Ned sent him.
That makes sense, but then you have to wonder, what exactly did Benjen do?
That's my question. That was one of the reasons why I thought Benjen was Jon's father for a long time. Like, I thought Benjen slept with the Shara Dane, and that ticked Ned off, so he sent him to the Wall. But I don't think that anymore. But
Yeah, but if we don't think that, is there any other logical reason for why Benjen would be at the Wall?
I don't know. Maybe it's
I
something
feel
that
like we don't get enough of Benjen to really have to be able to formulate opinion, to be like, yeah, this is probably what happened.
yeah, that's something that, despite George R. R. Martin saying specifically in notes to his editor that the character of Cold Hands in the books is not Benjen Stark, because the show in the final season made Cold Hands Benjen Stark. People think that Cold Hands is Benjen Stark. I want to know what the hell Benjen's doing. George R. R. Martin has said that he's not dead, that he's doing something, and he's not Cold Hands. So what the hell is he doing? Where is he?
Yeah, a good question.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe it's something that will be revealed in later books. Maybe it'll be revealed what Benjen did to get sent to the, because we're going full spoilers, folks. Bran can start seeing the past, and even I think see a little bit of the future, if I'm not mistaken, when his powers start manifesting.
Yeah.
So maybe he'll see whatever Benjen did that made Ned send him to the Wall.
Well, you have to imagine, if whatever he's currently doing has anything to do with why he was sent, unless it just has something to do with the Stark blood overall, and like for some reason, because
there has to be a
Ned does
Stark at the
mention that,
Wall or
like,
something.
yeah, like Ned does mention, like, the Starks have manned the Wall for centuries. Like,
Yeah.
does a Stark also have to have blood on the Wall for some reason? Because
Well,
we know a Stark being in Winterfell is important. Like,
so supposedly Bran the Builder, if I'm remembering correctly, did use blood magic when he was building the Wall. So maybe there's something that the Stark blood, does tie them to the Wall somehow. Maybe there has to be one there.
and maybe they did have bastards there or something, but
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
there was nobody else, and Ned was like, I have to send you to the Wall.
Yeah.
You have to go, because they do keep to the old ways, and like,
yeah. It's all stuff that it's like, Ned, if any of this is true, it's all stuff that it's like, Ned, why the didn't you tell Robb or somebody? like all these kids need to know these things. Why are you so stupid, Ned?
or even like the Maester should have been able to tell them, or like Catelyn should have known in the case of something, to be like, I know I need to inform you of this. Like, it should have been written down somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, Ned, you could have a heart attack at any moment, like, or something could happen.
Like, in case of emergency, break this box and learn about your path.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something going on with the Starks. I want to find out what Benjen did, if he did do anything to be sent to the Wall, or if, like we're saying now, it's some sort of blood oath that there has to be a Stark at the Wall or something. Who knows? I don't know. I guess George knows. There's a lot of, I'm gonna have to look and see. There's a great show. If you're listening to us and you don't know who these people are, The Order of the Green Hand. They do fantastic shows about book theories and everything. They get a little out there with them. A little more crazy than even us, but they have some great content, and I recommend checking them out. Don't replace them with us, or don't replace us with them, but check them out.
I mean, we cover a lot of different stuff too, so
yeah, but I don't know. Is there anything else you'd like to say, or?
No, I think that, like I said, I think the most interesting thing is just where Benjen is. Like, Benjen, what's going on, bro?
Yeah, maybe because now I'm trying to remember. It's like, one of the rumors is that the Night's King, the 13th Lord Commander or whatever, that took another for a wife and all that. There was, like, one of the rumors is that he was a Stark, and like he fathered children with her and stuff. I don't know, maybe and the Starks have the blood of the first men, and so do the wildlings. That's something too, is why when the wall went up would people choose to live on the other side of it? Like, why would they be like, oh, there's horrible things over on this side of the wall, let's live here? Like
Yeah.
they say it was for freedom or whatever, that they didn't want to be part of the Seven Kingdoms. And then there's other people that theorize that humans didn't build the wall, that it was built by the others to keep humans from coming. But who knows? All these crazy theories that we'll be talking about over, well, it'll be months from now when we cover the later stuff. But
Yeah.
anyway, let's go into the outro then, I guess. That concludes this week's episode of the Once Again podcast. Thank you for joining us. Any questions, comments, or critiques can be addressed to our email at onceagainpod@gmail.com. Follow us at onceagainpod, all one word, on Twitter and Instagram. If you are feeling generous and would like to contribute to the podcast, we have several tiers available on patreon.com/onceagainpod. Also, a like and a share would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. And remember, we will entertain you. We will always entertain you.